So if you're familiar with the Spencer's Bridge Gold Belt, you'll know Westhaven Gold is advancing the Shovel Nose project in British Columbia. The company has just secured an earn-in deal with Dundee worth up to 85 million Canadian dollars, with Westhaven retaining 40% interest as development advances. Well, CEO Ken Armstrong joins us now to tell us more about the deal. Ken, thanks very much indeed for your time.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me here.
Well, look, what does this 85 million Canadian dollar Dundee deal enable that wasn't possible before?
Well, it's a good question. There's a lot to pack into that. We obviously, with our projects in the Spencer's Bridge Gold Belt that Westhaven's been evaluating for about 10 years now, and we made a significant discovery in 2018, 2019 of the South Zone deposit. Have built that out, completed an economic study last year, so in March of 2025, a preliminary economic assessment that showed really attractive economics to develop what has been defined so far. But we also know there's real exploration upside in the entire belt. We have 4 properties along about 100-kilometer strike extent of the belt. And there's an opportunity here to not just develop Shovel Nose and what we've defined so far, but to make new discoveries and to really develop a generational mining camp of multiple deposits. And that was sort of our vision for the property and the projects that we'd accumulated. And so how do you do that as a junior company in finance and in a world where there's a lot of junior exploration stories? This is an area with exceptional infrastructure advantages. As we were chatting before we started this, when you think of British Columbia, you think of the Golden Triangle, which is a fantastic marketing idea for the northern part of the province. Southern British Columbia is equally well endowed in terms of mineral potential. The largest copper mine in the country, the Highland Valley, is in this region. Hud Bay and the Copper Mountain mine is in this region. So it's an area with excellent endowment, excellent infrastructure. The Coquihalla Highway crosses the claims that host our Shovel Nose deposit. There's a power line onto it. Has all of these advantages, and we needed to identify the best way to go forward. And we were essentially late last year looking at putting together a team, which we've done to market and move this forward on our own, but we were also open to engagement with more sophisticated investors who understood the development opportunity and the exploration opportunity, and were willing to work with us in sort of a true partnership, and Dundee was able to do that. So the $85 million is it's an important number for us. It allows us to, we'd mapped out to get the project through feasibility, might be about $65 million or so. So it's reasonable that if this moves along the path the way that we picture it moving along the path, Westhaven doesn't finance again until it's project financing. Really importantly wrapped into that is the fact that Dundee's earning 60%, or flipped another way, Westhaven retains 40%, and that was a really important metric for us.
We're going to talk about the further detail in a moment, but I noticed that you got into this rebranded under a refreshed leadership. What drove that?
I think it was just a natural progression for a company. The discoveries had been made, the economic assessment, as I mentioned, from last year in March, and it was just a realization to put together a team that has moved this. And this was really spearheaded by Ira Thomas, the chair of our board. Gareth Thomas was the CEO at this time last year. And they both realized that for this to advance, they needed to pull together people that have done this before. And they did an excellent job. And so the group that we've got are all people that we've all worked together. So Zara Bolt, our new CFO, Robin Hopkins, our Vice President Exploration, and Ryan Federley, who runs our operations and moved to Merritt and lives there. We've all worked together before in different aspects of our career. We know and like and respect each other, and we're fully committed as a team to advancing this forward. We brought in Alison Rippon-Armstrong on the Indigenous side to help with ESG, so and Kelly Gatton's on communication. So we have a group of people that can do this. And we'll talk about Dundee, but one of the key parts of that is that there's real alignment in our vision as a team of how to do this and how Dundee would picture this moving forward as well.
Suppose that feeds into my next question, because you have the 60-40 split, 40% retained by Westhaven. Why was that structure attractive to both sides? Presumably it is.
Absolutely, it worked both ways. I think, obviously I can speak better to the Westhaven piece, and that we haven't seen a lot of JV transactions of junior companies, I think even over the last 10 years. When we do see them, they're often sort of 80-20 or 75-25 type arrangements where the upside and the flexibility for the junior partner really is constrained. the 40%, it was important to us. It really goes back to our group's history with Aber Resources in the 1990s and the discovery of the Diavik diamond mine. Aber's shareholders did really well retaining a 40% interest in Diavik. It allowed them to transact. They ultimately they purchased Harry Winston Diamonds, and the whole business was able to be developed on the back of that 40% interest. And we will retain that flexibility going forward. So that was really the most important piece, to sort of retain that takeover premium. The ability to transact corporately was important, but equally important was the firm commitment that Dundee has to spend $30 million. Kind of recognizes what needs to happen next. We were pretty clear that the project really needs in the neighborhood of $15 million a year spent on it to properly advance on the development story and the exploration piece. And that $30 million allows us to do this. And Dundee is positioned now to fund it. And there's no gaps in funding. It allows us to move into pre-feasibility and then ultimately into feasibility and ideally project financing and construction without those gaps where you finish a pre-fees often as a junior and then you got to market it and raise the money and convince everybody that we need to go to feasibility. We will be able to move through those gates at a proper pace and continue to advance the project sort of more seamlessly than we could on our own.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, because that was my next question. I mean, what do you do with that commitment for the 30 million Canadian dollars that you get? Because remember, you've also got this 2026 budget, right? I think it's about 20 million.
Yep.
What happens with that?
Yeah, so I think that was an important part of the announcement, just to get across that we're in a position to spend appropriately but aggressively, and I just mean that aggressively, and that the studies that need to be done we can do, and Dundee is willing and in a position to be able to fund that. So, I mean, the 30 million should comfortably get us through a pre-feasibility study, plus I think, and into what feasibility looks like. It will meaningfully advance the development side of the story, but importantly, at the same time, within that 20 million, we're finalizing it, but probably half of the drilling budget will go towards exploration drilling to advance that exploration story, which again is something as on our own. If we're advancing the exploration side, then probably it would be more challenging to finance the development piece at the same time. So it allows us to move forward and allows Dundee to advance the development piece and take advantage of the really excellent work that our team has done to come up with what the next round of exploration target drilling will look like on Shovel Nose in particular. Yeah,
let's talk about that. So how do the two teams align here? Because you're moving from drilling to development and then marketing Shovel Nose, right? How does that work?
Well, I think it's all indications are it's going to work really well. And it was sort of the third piece. I think if we look at, for us to maintain 40% was really important. That $30 million minimum expenditure was really important, and the people. And I think I shared this when we first made the announcement that when Dundee's team came to site to do their on-site technical due diligence, it was clear right away that we were well aligned in our thinking on how this project sort of conceptually should move forward. It's sort of a 2.5-hour drive from Vancouver onto the property, and so that gives you 2.5 hours to chat in the car on the way up. And by the time we got there, we were really talking more. It wasn't really a due diligence visit anymore, where often the company hosting is just giving information, giving. You don't always get a whole lot back. Dundee's team is really collaborative in their ideas, and that alignment was something that became clear very, very quickly. And so now it's a matter of putting all of those pieces together. Like, we had the team in place on sort of the ESG and sort of a plan for our Indigenous engagement on the exploration side, on the operations side, and really Dundee brings project development experience, but with a sort of a view and a really good alignment on sort of our vision, I suppose you could say, and our approach to advancing a project.
And I suppose that point will work well towards convincing, from an investor perspective, that this really is an initiative that will de-risk the part, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, it does. And that having that funding available, having the right people advancing it, this is the start. As we talked about just a few moments ago, this could be a multi-generational mining camp like we see elsewhere in Canada and some of the Archean terrains. It's a different style of mineralization, it's an epithermal mineralization, which we don't see a lot in Canada. So I think there's a bit of an education piece there. I think there's an education piece for us with Westhaven just on the joint venture structure and how 40% in a properly structured deal, which we think this is, it can be really meaningful for shareholders, and that risk of continually going to the market. To be able to say our next financing could be project financing is huge. It's really important for us.
I want to close up by asking you, what's the biggest opportunity in this gold market now, as you see it?
Well, I think it's just to make sure that you're involved in it. I mean, but for us, it's the biggest opportunity that we see with Westhaven is that we could be into production before the cycle is over. And that's what this setup now allows us to move forward with.
All right, well, thanks very much indeed. Ken Armstrong from Westhaven Gold. Thanks very much indeed for coming in.
Great, thanks for having me.